can do this, I'll give you 200 bucks.
Have you ever met a man who seemed completely ordinary, quiet, unnoticed, just blending into the crowd, yet carried within him a power capable of astonishing the entire world? This is the incredible story of Anatoly, a humble gym cleaner who swept more than just floors. He swept away doubts, egos, and expectations. Day after day, he worked in silence, surrounded by athletes sculpting their bodies, yet few ever looked twice at him. To most, he was invisible, but behind that calm, unassuming smile hid a strength forged by years of discipline and inner fire. One day, a professional bodybuilder, confident, admired, and full of pride, decided to challenge Anatoly. The gym erupted in laughter. After all, how could a cleaner compete with a champion? Cameras came out, whispers filled the air, and everyone waited for a quick and easy victory. But what happened next left the entire gym frozen in silence. Every rep, every lift, every movement revealed a power that came not from appearance, but from humility, focus, and a will unbreakable by time. In that moment, Anatoly taught everyone a lesson. True strength isn't measured by trophies or titles, but by the quiet persistence of those who never stop improving, even when no one is watching. So stay until the end, because this story isn't just about muscles or records. It's about character, discipline, and the kind of power that begins inside the heart. It all started in an ordinary gym, the kind filled with clanging weights, echoes of grunts, and egos as heavy as the dumbbells themselves. The air smelled of metal, sweat, and pride. Every man there wanted to prove something: strength, dominance, superiority. Among them was a well-known bodybuilder, a local celebrity admired for his enormous biceps and fearless confidence. His presence demanded attention. Wherever he went, people watched. But on that day, his eyes fell on Anatoly, the quiet cleaner pushing his mop between the machines, moving with calm precision, lost in his work. To the bodybuilder, Anatoly looked like no more than a background figure, invisible, unimportant, someone destined to serve, not to shine. A smirk formed on his face. "Let's see what the cleaner can do," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. His tone was playful, but his pride was on full display. The moment those words echoed across the gym, a crowd began to form. Phones were lifted, whispers spread like wildfire, and laughter filled the air. Everyone expected a show, a quick, effortless victory that would fuel the bodybuilder's fame. But what they didn't know was that this moment would turn into a lesson in humility. Because Anatoly, the man they overlooked, was about to redefine what real strength looks like. Anatoly didn't brag, he didn't flex, he didn't even raise his voice. Instead, he offered a gentle smile. The kind of smile that hides more stories than words could ever tell. Then, with quiet grace, he leaned his mop against the wall. The gym fell strangely silent for a brief moment, as if everyone was holding their breath. The metallic clank of weights in the background seemed distant now. All eyes were fixed on this unassuming man about to step into a storm of doubt. He walked toward the weight rack with steady, measured steps. No hurry, no fear. His posture was upright but relaxed, the calm of someone who knew exactly who he was. The professional bodybuilder stood nearby, arms crossed, muscles bulging, a grin of disbelief on his face. He expected this to be over before it began. To him, Anatoly was still just a cleaner, a man who wiped away other people's sweat, not someone who could make them sweat. But when Anatoly approached the barbell, something subtle began to shift in the room. His focus was absolute.
His eyes didn't dart around for approval. They locked onto the weights with quiet determination. It was as if, in that instant, the noise of the gym faded and time slowed down. Every movement, his hands wrapping around the cold steel, the slight bend of his knees, the deep breath he took before lifting, felt deliberate, sacred even. The whispers began to spread through the crowd. He's not serious. This is going to end badly. He's going to embarrass himself. Laughter rippled through the room, but Anatoly didn't flinch. He heard every word, and yet none of it reached him. Inside, he was somewhere else entirely. His silence wasn't weakness, it was focus. His calm wasn't fear, it was mastery. Because Anatoly knew something no one else there seemed to understand. True strength doesn't demand attention, it earns it through action. It doesn't live in noise or pride, but in patience, humility, and repetition. While others sought glory under bright lights, Anatoly had built his power in the shadows, in the quiet hours when no one was watching. And now in that crowded gym, filled with judgment and laughter, it was time for that quiet strength to finally speak, not through words, but through what he was about to do next. The challenge began. The tension in the air was thick, every eye fixed on the two men who stood at opposite ends of the same barbell. The gym, usually filled with the clanking metal and pulsing music, had fallen into a focused hush. Even the hum of the ceiling fans seemed to fade beneath the weight of anticipation. The professional bodybuilder stepped forward first. His muscles rippled under the fluorescent lights as he chalked his hands, clapping them together to create a white cloud of confidence. He wrapped his massive fingers around the bar, inhaled deeply, and pulled with explosive energy. The weights rose from the ground in a powerful motion. His veins bulging, his face tensed with effort. When the bar locked out at the top, the crowd erupted. Cheers, whistles, applause, the sound of admiration and ego intertwined. Cameras flashed, and the gym vibrated with the energy of victory. But then, it was Anatoly's turn. The noise began to fade again as he stepped forward. No swagger, no display. Just calm presence. He adjusted his stance, gently brushed the chalk off the bar with a towel, and positioned his hands. His grip was steady, precise, the kind that comes from years of quiet practice, not performance. He took a slow breath, eyes fixed on the bar, and in one smooth, controlled motion, he lifted. Effortlessly. The bar rose as if weightless, his back straight, his arms steady, his face serene. There was no shouting, no grimace, no surge of ego. Just pure, silent power. Every movement was perfect, a dance of balance, discipline, and grace. The room froze. The laughter stopped. Even the sound of the camera shutters ceased for a moment. The crowd watched, stunned, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. This wasn't brute force. It was mastery. It was strength that didn't need an audience to exist. And as Anatoly set the bar down with care, the silence deepened. The bodybuilder who had once smirked now stood speechless, his pride slowly dissolving into respect. And in that stillness, everyone understood. They hadn't just witnessed a lift. They had witnessed a revelation.
As the challenge continued, the stakes rose, and so did the weight on the bar. Each new plate clanked into place with a heavy, echoing sound that filled the gym like a drumbeat of pride and tension. The air was thick with adrenaline. The once confident bodybuilder stepped forward again, his breath heavy, his jaw clenched. He had dominated every competition he entered, but this time felt different. There was something unsettling about Anatoly's silence, that quiet certainty that spoke louder than any roar of triumph. He bent down, gripped the bar, and pulled with all his might. His muscles bulged, veins surfaced, sweat poured down his forehead. The barbell shook under the strain. His face twisted in effort, and a guttural yell escaped his throat. The crowd shouted encouragement, their voices echoing through the room. "You got this! Push it!" But inside those cheers was a flicker of doubt. The once effortless strength now seemed desperate. His pride was no longer his power. It had become his burden. Then it was Anatoly's turn. He stepped up without fanfare, wiping his hands on a small towel, his movements unhurried and deliberate. The same bar that had made the professional tremble now rested before him, silent and still. Anatoly took a deep breath, not to psych himself up, but to center himself. To him, this wasn't a contest. It was a moment of focus, of connection between body, mind, and purpose. He gripped the bar, closed his eyes for a brief second, and lifted. No shouting, no grimace, no need to prove anything. His body moved with flawless precision, every muscle aligned in perfect harmony. It looked less like lifting and more like meditation, a slow, fluid motion that carried the serenity of years spent in quiet mastery. As he set the bar down gently, a hush fell across the gym. The sound of metal meeting the ground echoed like a bell of realization. And in that moment, every spectator, from the loudest to the proudest, understood the truth. Anatoly wasn't just strong. He was wise. He was disciplined. He had built not only muscle, but mastery. The cleaner they had once ignored now stood as a living reminder that greatness doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers through calm confidence and unshakable humility. Finally, they reached the breaking point. The weights on the bar had become monstrous, the kind of load that separated pride from pain, talk from truth. The crowd grew restless, phones trembling in eager hands, hearts pounding in rhythm with the metallic clinks of the added plates. It wasn't just about strength anymore. It was about identity. The bodybuilder stepped forward, his face already flushed, his breath heavy. Determination burned in his eyes, but so did desperation. He gripped the bar so tightly his knuckles turned white. With a roar, he pulled, his entire frame trembling under the pressure. Veins bulged across his arms and neck, sweat dripped like rain onto the gym floor. His face twisted in effort, red, strained, defiant. The crowd shouted encouragement, but beneath the noise, a creeping silence of disbelief began to rise. He managed to lift halfway before his arms gave in. The barbell crashed down with a metallic thud that echoed like defeat. And then Anatoly stepped forward. No rush, no hesitation. His expression was the same calm mask it had been since the beginning, serene, composed, almost peaceful. He didn't look at the crowd or the cameras or the defeated bodybuilder beside him. His eyes were fixed only on the bar. He crouched down, placed his hands on the steel, and took one steady breath. The air seemed to still around him. Then, with perfect control, he lifted. No shouting, no trembling, no chaos. Just pure, quiet power. The weight rose smoothly, almost gracefully, until it locked above his head. For a few seconds, time itself seemed to stop. The gym erupted. Gasps, shouts, applause, disbelief filled every corner of the room. People dropped their phones, others covered their mouths. The same crowd that once laughed at the cleaner now stood in awe of him. In that single, unforgettable moment, the underdog became the master. Anatoly didn't gloat. He simply lowered the weight, set it down with care, and gave a humble nod, a gesture that spoke louder than any victory speech ever could. Because this wasn't just about lifting steel. It was about lifting the veil of judgment. It was proof that greatness often hides behind humility, and that true power needs no audience to shine. The bodybuilder stood there, chest heaving, his pride shattered, but his spirit awakening. For a long moment he couldn't speak. The cheers of the crowd faded into a quiet hum, replaced by something heavier: respect. Slowly he walked towards Anatoly, the man he had once mocked, the man he had never truly seen.